Welcome to Bourbon with Bros. Live bourbon and the stories are meant to be shared. Yeah, it's Bourbon with Bros. Stories get bold. Little truth and a little soul. Back porch laughs and tales untold. Pour one up with Bourbon with Bros.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Bourbon with Bros. Here with the guys, with Chris, with Jim, with Toby, sitting down just to kind of have a chat, kind of talk through life and kind of what it means to be a man nowadays. It's not exactly an easy question to think about or to answer. I mean, Lord knows we get bombarded from all sides with what people think or tell us we're supposed to think, and it just seems like it's a never-ending barrage.
Yeah. Let's start. We'll take that pour first, and then we'll kind of dig into that topic. I think the biggest reason I think we wanted to do this one today was the last one we did was actually about if you'll catch that one at the VFW and talking about veterans and bringing suicide awareness. But it got us talking just in general about what it is. What's expected of us nowadays. So we'll get into that, and we'll get into a couple of bourbons. Toby, what do you got?
Let's see, I brought a barrel pick from Wild Turkey. There's a selection from the Prime Barrel website that I found, and it's one of the first things I bought from him. So I did actually pick up an old Swagger and an old Swagger Rye for Jason, and we haven't popped those bottles yet, but
Lord knows I needed another bottle.
I got one of those old Swaggers too from them.
Yep. So, all right.
I was talking to Jim earlier about this when we started too. He says, "It ain't your old man's Wild Turkey."
No.
Yeah. And that kind of fits into where we're going today.
This is a rye, and it is 101 proof.
Got a mash bill stated on it or no? If not, I'll look it up and I'll put it up on screen.
Yep. No, it's got a barrel number and no mash bill on here. So
I don't think Wild Turkey does a 95.5, but we'll have to look and check.
yeah, it's.
Because like most of the ryes you find in the market, especially the MGP ryes, they're all 95.5. So that kind of overpowering pepperiness.
Mm-hmm.
That's such a lovely sound when it goes glug 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 out of the bottle, isn't it?
It's different shape on the head of that bottle.
Yeah, it almost makes it look like it broke. God, look at the color on that. That's like honey.
A resident guy down there.
I was going to say, Mr. Nose, what you got?
Mr. Nose has some sinus issues from Northern Ohio.
I got phlegm and...
No, this is...
Wow. Get a lot of... I usually get rye on the palate with pepper, but I get a lot of pepper right on the nose.
Mm-hmm.
Tobacco, and of course that could be just because I finished a cigar, but
Well, I did not, and I do get the tobacco, which is abnormal on the nose.
Yeah. Look at the legs on that thing though. As you swirl it around the glass, it just sticks to the side.
Pepper definitely on the front of the tongue.
Mm-hmm. But not overpowering.
No. It sits there for a minute, but it doesn't go down the back. For me, it doesn't go back down peppery.
I get a little bit of oak, almost some leather on the palate. Not that I spend a lot of time licking leather jackets, but
It's like
just shoes.
it almost like it's kind of like eating
just shoes, dude.
It's kind of like eating one of those fireballs. You get that cinnamon hot just right on the front of your tongue there. But
I don't want to have a hot damn flashback from being a teenager.
Toby was eating those right up until just a couple of years ago.
Oh yeah, I can't find the fireballs anymore. But I got the cinnamon candy right here in my pocket. I
remember getting the plastic tub of the fireballs from like Sam's Club.
Yep,
that was always the best.
And then you turned 11.
No, like 32.
When I quit smoking, man, I lived on those things.
Me too.
Yeah.
This is good. I like this.
That is a great nose.
Well, like, was it like you, who said that? Not your father's wild turkey?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Jim
Jim
said it.
said
that
Yeah,
earlier.
it's definitely, yeah, it's not what we grew up on.
No.
This is different.
Well, that leads us right in, well, not your father's, you know. First question, I guess, that I have is, you know, your father, or who actually taught you what you thought you were supposed to be as a man? You know, was it?
That's a damn good question.
I'll say, I mean, my grandpa was my first dad. You know, my mom had me at a very young age. So my grandpa kind of helped raise me at that point. And so, you know, once I got about 5 years old, was about my mom married my stepdad, and he did, you know, he was younger than my mom, so he was even younger. He was only about 14 years older than I was. So I think he was still learning a lot of stuff as he was you know, he's still growing up and learning what it took to be a man. So that, you know, to learn some stuff that way was kind of, you know, didn't really shape me into that stuff until I got older and understood some of the things that I was learning from him. But that's definitely, my grandpa was my first one, and then my stepdad kind of showed me a lot more.
And for me, it was my dad. I thought growing up I was supposed to emulate exactly everything he did, right? I mentioned it during the last episode of the VFW. You know, my dad was a Navy guy. So every time you had a problem, his saying was always, nobody's coming, get up, take care of it yourself. And that's how I thought I had to be. And yeah, there's times where it works, but when you put everything on yourself and you don't lean on somebody else, eventually it just starts to pile up. You know, I look back now and, you know, that's how I started to raise my boys. And halfway through, I wound up having to pivot, because as I realized what it was doing to me, it like opened my eyes wide to what I was doing to them. I was like, oh geez, we gotta, you know, it's still, you know, take responsibility for your own actions. Don't, you know, put things off on other people, but also don't shoulder everything yourself. We can only take so much.
Yeah, I didn't learn that until what you're saying right there about sharing or doing anything. Literally, probably till just, you know, a year or two ago, right? I mean, as growing up, it was same kind of thing as, you know, you just got up, you went to work, you supported your family, you know, you weren't really supposed to complain about it, you know, because like you said, nobody's coming to fix it. If you can't fix it yourself, then, you know, you just keep bustling, and, you know, you kind of eat we've talked about that before, you just kind of eat a lot of that stuff, and you just push it down and just keep moving. And, you know, I think most of us probably lived part of that life for a long time, where you just, you know, who do you tell? You don't want to cry to your wife about it, or, you know, and I mean, Toby and Jim, you know, Toby for many years now, he's kind of the guy I was able to talk to, but obviously with our group the way we are now, I mean, you and I had just good conversation a couple of weeks ago about things going on, so, you know.
We get real good at putting on the mask, right? I'm good, everything's fine, is what it is. But those quiet moments, when you're by yourself, you're in the car, it's late at night, you're sitting out on the patio, or just, you know, you get that little bit of time by yourself, it just, God, it feels like 10 tons on your shoulders of, Jesus, can I really handle all this? Can I really handle all this? But, you know, even like you mentioned a couple weeks ago, you called me, and your first question was, how you doing? Not what's up, not what's going on, how you doing? Because you knew I was struggling with some stuff. And we talked for about 35 minutes, middle of the day. And God, I felt like I could float after that, because I could get this off my chest and talk to somebody who understood. And you had your own stuff you were going through. We talked about it. It's like, God, Lord, I mean, trying to do all that on my own the only person, if the only person you can talk to is yourself, you're just arguing with an idiot. Or at least in my case, I am.
And I think we touched on that last week with, the other guys about how you gotta open up, and ask for help or,
Find your people.
yeah, definitely.
I think Sam said it great when Sam said, yeah, it's find your tribe, but realize that your tribe needs you too. There's times that other guy is going to need you. So it's a give and take.
What about you, Jim?
I think it's evolving. I think it's always been evolving. That playing sports when I was a kid, seeing all the dad coaches around and seeing how they acted, and they weren't always great influences, but as you grow older, you start weeding them out, saying, I don't believe that I thought that was a good idea. But I think a lot of it is discernment as you get older, trying to figure out, like Jason said, one day you just wake up and go, that was a horrible idea. Why did I think that was the way you were supposed to do this?
Yeah, there's no, I don't think there's a right way.
No.
It's just, you gotta find the best way that works for you, and you work through it, and then like you said, that tribe is what gets everybody through. You're never gonna do anything perfect. And even if you did, there's not gonna be anybody else there to tell you that you did it perfect, so you don't know if it was right or wrong at the time, until you see what happens afterwards, so.
Great thing about finding that group of guys is accountability.
Right.
They help hold you accountable. They don't let you make excuses.
Right.
And you can vent to them, you can share with them, but at the end of the day, if you're being a jackass, your real friends are gonna tell you you're being a jackass and hold you accountable for it.
Yeah, and there's no manual for this.
No.
God, if there was, we wouldn't read it anyway. We're guys.
Yeah.
It's true.
I think one lesson I've kind of learned as I've gotten a little older is that, being a man is, it's always been for me being a provider, right? A protector for my family. But as a provider, right? Where does that end with, like, where you're supposed to be financially, or how much are you supposed to keep driving for work and balance that with the family and stuff? Obviously, when I was younger, I at times had 2 or 3 jobs at the same time, just trying to make sure I kept the house afloat and money so that, they could go and do the things and take that big vacation once a year if we could, right? But I think as I got older, it's like, all right, the money was probably never the important factor of it all. We could have definitely done with less, and
Yeah, everybody strives when they're younger. They want that money. They think that that's what it's all about. And then once you start seeing, the kids and the family and the friends, and see what they're doing as well, it's like, hey, it's not all about that. I've said it, plenty of times. It's all about the experiences that you have with the people that you're with. Like if it's your family, we went on a cruise over Christmas a couple years ago, and took the kids, and just said, you don't need socks and underwear every year for Christmas. It's nice to get that kind of stuff, but it's all about spending time together and seeing, what's really important. So,
And we're wired to think, competitively, right? That's why sports is such a big part of a lot of guys' lives. Money's like a scoreboard. It's easy to measure. If I get this, then I level up, right? But like you said, at the end of the day, and you said with the experiences, it's about time. It's about memories. And I think back, I traveled 48 weeks a year for 20 plus years for work, trying to get to that next level, trying to give the family whatever I could give them. And I look back and go, God damn, if I could do it differently. They didn't need the new iPhone. They didn't need tennis shoes. They needed me. And I finally realized it, not as early as I wanted to, but it's crazy.
Yeah, I think that's something. I never. It was not something I ever really thought about. As growing up before I had the kids, and then having the kids. I'm like, hey, the experience that you have with them, like I said, I was a dad coach, and I told my kids in every sport I coached them in, when we're out here, I'm not your dad. I'm your coach. I'm going to talk to you different out here doing this than I am when we're sitting at home. But and once they understood that, I mean, they definitely saw it, and then that enabled them to understand when they, moved on to where I wasn't a coach, how to handle those coaches and say, okay, this is definitely not my dad. He is my coach, and they learned from that, and it made them, I think they're turning out to be great young men, and my daughter graduating from high school this year, so here in a couple weeks. So
cheers to that, brother.
Cheers.
I think this is the first official cheers.
It is. It is. It's probably not going to be the first one this episode either.
What as a father growing up, what was, I don't know, when you tried to instill that stuff into the kids? I mean, we both coached and seen the same things with that, but just trying to instill it, was there a difference between raising a son and raising a daughter, and what you did to prepare your son to be men compared to bringing your daughter up to see the world?
It's, in my opinion, my take, definitely there was a huge, and I didn't realize that until Peyton got a little bit older. And, I'm like, I tell the boys, oh, don't cry, doing the same things that you just thought they needed to hear. And, I tell Peyton all the time, don't need to cry. Then you look back at it and it's like, okay, we're going to have a talk here now. And it's all right. It's probably good that you do sit down and have some tears and figure out what you need to do and work through it that way. And that's what I told her multiple times too. I'm sorry if I put you in that situation where you felt like it wasn't okay, because I didn't have any sisters. I didn't, you're the only daughter I have. I didn't know. I learned from raising these boys first and thought it would be the same way. And once we got to that point, and on that other side, telling the boys like what it takes to be a man, and again, going back to being accountable, and listen to what it takes for, we watch social media and we see all these guys and they're trying to tell, this is what I tell my kids all the time. And it's like, there's no, again, it goes back to there's no right way to do it. I mean, you can do it the best way you know how. And that's what it comes down to. As long as you're doing your best, that's what you have to realize and say, I'm doing everything I can, the best I can. Whatever I can do to do better, I'm going to learn, and I will do that.
I've got the weird kind of situation right now where, my kids are grown, but now I have Tanya's daughter that lives here. She's 11, my kids are 31, 26, and 24. My daughter's a 31-year-old, and Sammy's 11. So it's kind of like, not like a do-over, it's like I get to learn from my mistakes, but then every mistake I learn from, I feel like how badly I failed my daughter the first time around. It's like, okay, now I know what I was supposed to do. Now I know how I was supposed to handle that. Oh my God, I can't believe I did it that way with her. And it's, you can't call her up every time and apologize to her. But it's like, ugh.
Well, you talk about do-over, like, I have a grandchild now.
Oh,
yeah. And it's, I think, I think I still hold her accountable to, be a good person and not, hit and do all those things that, she's only 3 or 2.5, but, it's not the do-over. I think the pressure of being older, maybe, and we don't have the pressures that we did as young men trying to make our way in the world. We've kind of are balanced now. We kind of see that we needed a little bit more of that. So is it different at this stage in our life? And you know, I don't know if they're announcing it yet, but I know you're gonna be a grandpa soon, so you might see a little bit of that.
Wait, that deserves another cheers.
Jeez.
That deserves a cheers right there.
Wait a minute, are we doing like and subscribe at the same time? Or?
Might as well like and subscribe.
But yeah, I just think is maybe even for you at this point, like you don't. I know we all have pressures with work and things that are going on, but we're kind of stable all of us are stable in our lives right now, and you know, we have a home, we have the things we kind of need to get through. And I really think it's just a mental thing at this point for us, is that all those other pressures of things pushing you to be better and stronger and compete or whatever it was are kind of, yeah, I don't have to do that anymore. I can just be me, you know.
That's again, that's something you don't realize when you're younger, that's you really need. That's the most important stuff, is you got to take care of yourself, you know. Like, if you don't take care of yourself, you know, that's how you're going to be there later on to help guide them when they need you. So
Exactly.
I think 2 important points is understanding priorities and being able to actually define your priorities as you get older. I think that's the difference. As we grow older, we figure out what's important and we know how to put that first.
Right.
When we were in our 20s, maybe going out to the bar or going to play softball with the guys or going fishing, having your own time was a priority, where now your priorities hang out with your family or making memories.
That second one is the hardest one, because the world has no problem throwing what your priority should be at you, and it's trying to find your way through the noise to find what really matters. Let's go ahead and rate this one real quick, just so we can, because then we can move on to the next one. Chris, you want to start us off?
Well, let's see. Let me take another seat. It's been a minute. I mean, for a rye, to me, this is really phenomenal.
Because you're not normally a rye fan.
No, it doesn't have all the burn. It's got a little pepper on the tongue, which is great. It lasts on the tongue. It's a little sweet for me. I mean, not sweet for me. I taste a little bit of sweetness, which is good because I like that. And I don't usually get that out of a rye either. I'm going to probably put that at like about a 3.3.
To write this one down, Chris rated a rye over a 3.
I know.
Nice. I'm in the same boat as you. I mean, this is, I could sit down and crush the daylights out of this bottle, and I like rye. This is one of the best ryes I've tasted in a while. I'm going to go really high on this one. I give this a 3.6. This is fantastic. Great pickup, Tobe.
Thanks. Yeah, that's definitely a lucky find. I feel like it was. I'm very, very happy with this, and Prime Barrel, thank you very much.
Follow us.
I'm right there as well. I'm about a 3.6 to 3.7. It's, and I'm not typically a rye fan either, but I think now that I'm having a few more here and there, I'm starting to become a rye guy. So.
I generally avoid ryes like you avoid an alligator in a pond. Not generally a fan. By far, this is my favorite rye I've ever had. As far as ryes, it's like a 3.9 overall for a bourbon.
Nice.
I'm gonna say it's like a 3.4, which is very solid. I don't think we've really gone over 3.4, 3.5 on most bourbons.
No, not really. Not really.
So I'm pleasantly surprised. I wasn't real excited when Toby said he was bringing the Wild Turkey rye.
That's why I said I'm kind of surprised at this myself.
Toby with the win.
I mean, with Bourbon with Bro score, that's pretty high, but just in general, that's almost a 9 from most of us here.
Yeah.
That's
I'm
pretty good
pleasantly surprised.
Good stuff.
All right.
So next up, we're going to do the Wild Turkey Private Selection, not rye.
All right.
And this is a 101 proof. It is, I think there's 6 to 8 year age I don't think there's an absolute age statement on each bottle. And they actually just came out with these in 2024.
Okay.
So they did away with their store pick options and started doing the private barrel or private selection options instead. So these are very loud bottles.
Two good cork pops. I love the shape of these Wild Turkey bottles too.
Yeah.
They absolutely glug when you pour them.
Where'd you get that at?
Actually, Sam, who was on the last episode with us, he was down at Wild Turkey Distillery the weekend after we did the last episode, and he picked me up 2 bottles from there.
Oh my lord.
So, Toby, how much was the rye? And Jim, do you know how much the...
I believe that was around 70 or 75.
And that's an $85 barrel.
So it's still like a reasonable, especially for a private barrel.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, you even think back to, most of our favorite bourbons, right? Eagle Rare, $40, but a Eagle Rare store pick is usually 55, 60.
Yeah.
There's always going to be a little bit of a premium for that barrel pick. That is lovely on the nose. That's brown sugar, that's caramel, that's vanilla.
And some fruits and
Yeah.
It's funny.
The color is almost a little bit darker than the rye, which I wouldn't have expected.
No.
You get almost the same smells.
between the two.
Yeah.
I don't get the pepperiness on the nose.
Or the leather and
Yeah.
No,
Give it more of a
but it's,
sweeter-
I mean, viscosity
we need to get
wise,
that nosing kit for you.
viscosity wise, it's still just as beautifully oily.
Great.
This sounds funny, but it's like a bouquet of different smells hitting you at the same time.
I won't judge. I mean, I will.
Silent.
I mean, we're bros, right? That's what we do. We're gonna tell you.
I get the
Oh,
same,
my goodness.
the same tongue, the same little peppery on the tongue, like almost the cinnamon, eating the cinnamon candy on the tongue for me.
This is like just sweet, almost like eating a caramel or
I've got cherry, I've got caramel, I've got a little bit of nutmeg almost on the very back end.
Okay.
And it's not a long finish, but it's a warm finish. And it doesn't radiate down the chest, but like around the cheeks and around the back of the mouth. Don't take that.
Oh boy.
Don't go there.
Yeah. I still have PTSD from the last episode.
I know.
That's why I'm not sitting next to you this time.
I was gonna call you to apologize. Felt like I hurt your feelings.
They were beat out of me a long time ago.
Feeling.
You still have 2 left though, horny and thirsty.
Oh crap.
Correct, sir.
Which is horrible, because that's not a good segue to where I was going to ask.
Run with that, Christopher.
Well, let me ask a different question than the one I was going to go to. We'll go back to this question. How about that? Because I was going to kind of go a little philosophical with the Bible on you for a minute, but let's talk about the difference between what we see as being men now, right? And when we grew up, most of us in the 70s and 80s, right? And when we were young men and growing up. What's it like with the young men today? Do you think they still feel the same pressures and the same things that we do? Because, I mean, we see a whole different kind of generation of men, right?
I think we see an additional generation of men. I don't think all the young men today are truly represented by a portion of them. I think there are still, like our son sitting here, serving in the military, going out working right after school, and putting their nose to the grindstone, compared to some of the other, let's say, more liberal arts kind of males that I think there is a certain sense of entitlement in some of them, but I think there's still a portion of the men, young men, that are a little more traditional.
Yeah. The priorities are different now. And I see especially kids coming out of college, when they're coming in applying for jobs, their priorities are more focused on their own personal well-being. And I can't necessarily say that's a bad thing when it's done in a healthy manner, right? How do I find a way to make work beneficial to me?
Right.
That makes perfect sense. It's a heck of a lot healthier than I started out doing.
It's what I've seen a lot of too. Is that they're not career oriented. They're okay. I have a job to make what I need to make right now. They're not
Future
for the
focused.
for the most part. There are still some out there, but for the most part, they're not worried about retirement. They're not worried about what it's going to be like when they're 60 years old. They're worried about what it's going to be like when they're 25, 26, 27, and making sure they can get there. They're focused on today.
And in their defense, a lot of them grew up watching what happened to their parents. Right. They saw their parents get laid off. They saw companies have no loyalty to their parents. So their take is, well, why would I have loyalty to a company when there's no loyalty coming the other way?
Right.
It's like anything, right? If you're too extreme on one side or the other, it's just not healthy. There's got to be balance in the middle. And as you mentioned, Jim, the kids that are going out and finding ways to serve their community, serve their country, serve their communities through work, through anything else, they've got that balance. The ones that are me, it's just not there.
Well, I'll tell you, as a 19, 20, 21-year-old myself, I was probably pretty self-centered, right? Because I was hitting the bars and doing the silly things that, but I worked hard. But I was playing pretty hard too in the same time. But
when the bell rang, you were there.
Yeah.
I just, from just my perception, again, I don't see it that way though. I see it, they're self-centered, most of them, but they're worried about, they're not worried about making that money to get better for, to advance. They're just worried about, okay, and it's not, the vast majority, I think, going to the bars, that just doesn't happen for this younger age crowd that I see. They're worried about, okay, let's do this today and we'll come back and do it tomorrow.
They have their own way of, I guess, dealing with stuff now, whatever it may be, and video games or the phones, which, we can get into how that made a big difference in
social media
generations.
We've all said it, we've all heard people say it. Thank God social media wasn't there when we were their age, because things would completely be different for all of us. But
I'd be dead. My father would have killed me.
Well, I think touching on some social aspects without getting too involved is with the higher divorce rate, the single motherhood rate. I think a lot of the young men didn't have a good example. Participation in sports is way down for young boys in school. Having a good role model, I think, is important, and a lot of the young guys don't have that. Not downplaying a woman's role in parenting, but I think there are separate roles for parents. The guys teach their boys kind of what it's like to be a man, and the woman's teaching them what they want in a man.
Yeah.
And it's just a little different. So accountability is different for them as well.
It's hard to teach what you haven't lived. I'm sure if circumstances had arose, I could have raised a daughter on my own, but there would have been so much I couldn't have taught her because I had no idea about it.
We always look at things. The times when I had my daughter, I'm like, put whatever clothes you want to wear on. I don't care. I've got pictures of her walking around in camouflage this and striped that, and just like, okay, it didn't match, but you know what? I don't care. You be you. And that I think it's the same. It goes both ways with the moms with their part of raising their boys and same thing with the dads raising their daughters. I mean, I definitely don't know what that takes, but you learn and you find your tribe with other girl dads and say, hey, what do I got to do to make this work for her? Because I don't know, I've never been here, never done that, so I'd like a little guidance. And then you always get the tips from them too. So
this is coming from the patron saint of all cheer dads. But even you look at media, right? So look at like the TV shows that our parents grew up with. Father Knows Best, right? Ward Cleaver, the wise father. What are the dads in the TV shows today? They're bumbling morons that can't get anything right. And it's
right.
We can laugh at it, but at the end of the day, I mean, there's a reason why companies sell their products on commercials.
Yeah.
You hammer it in enough and you start to change people's perceptions and people's decision making. If you just portray fathers as bumbling idiots,
Right.
people stop thinking that they're the ones to go to for answers.
Yeah, because I mean, just to speak on that, like the TV shows like Leave It to Beaver and those guys, you know what I mean? Ward Cleaver came home and that's the way it was. And mom had her input, but she didn't know. And now it's the opposite. It is on TV shows. It's just what it comes down to. But I agree with you there.
Yeah, I don't know. I think like I said, when I was a young man, unmarried, that I was pretty self-centered myself. And I'm sure my dad looked at me and goes, "What is this kid doing?" Right? But when I finally got those responsibilities, that's when I thought like I was becoming a man. I don't think I was a man at 17, 18, 19, 20 years old, right? I was a boy trying to learn how to be a man.
Yeah.
And when I became a father is when I think I became a man, or at least felt the pressures of a man, of what you needed to do to provide and nurture, or whatever those things were that were there. Mostly for me, I think it was the providing part.
Yeah.
Right. And I know, like I said earlier, I worked multiple jobs just trying to do that part to keep my kids with everything they needed, and maybe I didn't spend enough time there when they were that age.
You guys ever, this is going to be a weird segue, you guys ever have flashback regrets? Like I'll be driving
100%.
down the road and suddenly just something I did when I was like 22 pops in my head and you just start, what the hell were you thinking, you moron? Why would you have done that? Why did you say that?
Yeah, then you think, well, if I would have done it then, like I would do it now, what would have changed?
Yeah, butterfly effect, right?
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest differences I see in, just say, the workplace now between our generation and the new generation coming in is just the difference in the tone at work. I mean, when I was a kid, men swore at me and they yelled at you, and you were going to get it right and they were going to pound it in you, and now it's like it's so coddled, in my opinion. And I think that's not because of the boys, right? It's not because of the men that are coming. I think it's just the way the society has pushed it. Like, the masculinity part of it, I think, is gone a little bit.
That's actually a really good point. So when we were young, you were thankful to get a job that somebody gave you a chance to make money and to contribute. And now I think that's reversed, where younger people think that their employers are privileged that they're going to be able to work with you.
You should.
I think that's a definitive shift.
Yeah, you should be happy.
So now the jobs are catering towards the employees, where 50 years ago, 30 years ago, we were grateful to have a job and somebody that offered you an opportunity to provide for yourself.
I remember the first time I was interviewing somebody and I actually had them ask me, so why should I come work for you? And it took me a good 30 seconds to answer. I like rocked back in my seat. I'm like, I need to process this for a second.
Wait a second.
And, afterwards, I kind of thought about it. I was talking to some colleagues, and it's like, that's actually not a horrible question if you've got the chops to back it up.
Right.
If you're entry level,
Yeah.
not quite the right time and place.
You spend almost 20% of your life at work.
Oh
So that is a fair question.
Some weeks it feels like a lot more. We need a little bit more of that. That is freaking delicious.
Well, I think the term toxic masculinity now is really come out where, you know, and that's where, you know, like you said, the workplace has changed from when we were kids to where it is now for this new generation coming in.
Whenever society moves too far one way, there's always a harsh reaction back the other way, right? So as you mentioned, society's gotten a lot more, call it sensitive towards
Soft.
people's feelings, soft, however you want to phrase it. That automatic, harsh response is that alpha, toxic masculinity, you know, screw everybody, dominate. The happy ground is somewhere in the middle. You've got to have that level of accountability. You've got to have that level of be strong and do the right thing, while also not trying to run everybody in your path over.
Yeah.
Well, Jordan Peterson actually made a good comment that I thought about a lot. He said every man should be a monster. He should train to be a monster, but he should train harder to know how to control the monster.
To never let the monster out. Well, or to only let the monster out when it has to come out.
Yeah. And that's kind of important. Nobody respects you if there's nothing that you have to offer to back up your existence.
The first thing that I teach, you know, new supervisors, new managers, new executives is if your only weapon in your arsenal is just yelling and rage, it loses all effectiveness. There's a reason the Army issues more than just nukes. Not every situation requires you to level a city block. Sometimes you have to be a little bit more tactical, a little bit more softer. But you got to have the ability to turn it up to 11 when you need to.
Exactly, and that's where you're going to see, you know, and I use my experiences, you know, my wife is the one that she will yell and scream and curse and
Reagan is the nuke.
and she's
He could be in trouble.
Probably. Sorry.
Love you, Reagan.
But at the same time, I am, you know, and people have told me that I'm the most level-headed, laid-back person you'll ever meet. And Chris has experienced this too. I mean, it's if I get upset, you will know that I'm upset. And if you know that, then especially if you know me, then you've reached that point where.
So Toby, when we were coaching, this is a story from years ago, when we were coaching, we actually became board members and was in charge of the coaches and stuff. And I'm always the bad guy, right? And I don't mind that role at times. Learned, like, now I'm learning a little bit more how to balance that good guy, bad guy, controlling that monster. But, so we bring this coach in, and I'm kind of talking to him and trying to give him a chance, and he said something that just
Oh boy.
rattled Toby. Toby really just got up out of his chair and got big and like over top of this guy, and I am now sitting in my chair sinking down because I've never seen that out of Toby, and I'm waiting for like what is gonna blow right now. I'm like, holy crap, Toby. But I mean, goes to your point. Like you need. It was just that time.
I think that guy realized at that point, okay, I've never seen that guy do this before, and okay,
It had weight.
right,
Maybe I screwed up.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I think, you know, for my kids, they've seen that same thing. You know, again, no offense to my wife, it's just how she is. But I am that laid back. Like I wait, I controlled it. I wait until it's needed, and when it's needed, then that's when they know. Like it's okay, I screwed up.
Yeah, I've taught guys too in the past of how to be good managers and stuff. And one of the things that I told them is, if you're always the guy yelling, then your group's just gonna come by and go, "That's just him. He always screams." But if you're calm and you're patient and you try and you teach them, you coach them, you train them, but when they really screw up and you really you blow off, they're going to pay a little bit of attention to you on those days. Not that it's, you're allowed to do that in this job market nowadays, but if you do get downright serious with them after you give them a bunch of chances, they, you know. And as a young kid, I was the screamer. Like, I thought that's the way I needed to do it until luckily I had a few good mentors in my life outside of, you know, that in the workplace that said, hey, let me show you a few things. Let me calm you down a little bit. So, you know.
I agree.
So here's a couple things I was going to get to earlier. So here's kind of some of the things we've been talking about too. But so this is a biblical summary of manhood that I looked up. It says courage without cruelty, leadership without pride, strength without violence, confidence without arrogance, and responsibility without excuses. I think that hits a lot of what we, you know, how we feel and what we do here, and, you know.
6,000-year-old philosophy.
Yeah,
which is pretty crazy.
I look back on the mentors I've had, especially in business, and every single one of them emulated servant leadership. Their title, their position, their power was not the predominant thing about them. They looked at every single day as, what can I do to make the lives of those who work for me and with me easier? That's it. It wasn't, how do I make more money? It wasn't, how do I get another interview? How do I get another title? How do I get another feather in my cap? It was, if everybody around me succeeds, then I'm good.
Yeah.
Then I'm good.
I've said that anytime, you know, somebody that I supervise, I say, you know, if they promote and they move along, I mean, that's a reflection on me. You know, like, I feel like that's good. You know, the people that have left are like, you know, if you would have just said something to me, I would have stayed and worked for you. But I don't want that. Like, I'm not trying to make you stay here and do the same thing forever. I want you to advance. You know what I mean? I want you to be like that. So
One of my mentors.
It's a good feeling to see that. No, you're good. It's good.
I thought you were done. One of my mentors was the CEO of Dana. And I remember when I met with him to tell him that I was leaving to take a job, and I was borderline tearing up because I hated to leave the guy. And he looked at me and he just smiled. He said, "This has been the plan all along." He says, "Look back to the other guys who've left and gone on to bigger things elsewhere. The plan was to raise you all up, and then you find the next opportunity and you go lead elsewhere. The plan wasn't for me to hoard a whole bunch of good people.
Right.
It was to send them out and have them succeed on their own."
Yep.
That's
what it's all about.
Yeah, I mean, Jim Kim Siskis, he's probably, I mean, without a doubt, one of the best leaders I've ever worked for.
And that's funny when you were talking about servitude and things like that. That is the exact definition of a horrible boss, is the one that sits there looking at their profit loss statement every month, thinking, okay, we need to hit these numbers today to get my bonus. And don't give any credit to the guys that are actually performing to try to get to that point. Where if they took the other approach and worked towards helping their guys, that P&L statement's going to reflect what you expect it to.
And whether it's business, or whether it's community, or whether it's family, if you are empowering and raising those up around you, it's a force multiplier. If it's family, if you are raising your kids and developing your partner to be happy and to be healthy, it multiplies your own happiness. That's not 3 or 4 other people that are coming to you with issues and dragging you down. If you're developing a team underneath you at work that can just knock it out of the park, and you've got 100 people pulling in the same direction and not 2. And it's, you know, it's that, again, going back to that toxic masculinity, it's not about dominating. It's about a responsibility towards other people. What, you know, I look back, I have no business doing what I do. I don't have the educational background. The only way I got where I was through mentors that looked at me and took a chance and said, let's throw this guy in the dumpster fire and see what happens. So I'm at that point now in my life where it's like, I have the responsibility to do the same for other people. How do I raise up the next generation?
I mean, people respond when they feel needed. They respond, you know, when they feel like they're empowered, right? They take that, and I always compare it to like raising children, right? If you kind of set the guidelines for them, they always want to please you. But if you're beating them on them all the time as a dad or as a boss, right? You're just always putting them down and saying you're not worth a crap or whatever. What gives them what makes them want to stay? So like you said, mentoring, teaching, helping,
Achievable goals.
yeah, right. And I've started in basic bottoms of companies and moved my way up. So people say that's bad because you are empathetic of that position and you're not willing to drive them. But I've always found that if I'm empathetic to them, am I saying that word right, Jim? Because you Jimmy's looking at me funny. But if you are, like, then they understand that, and when you ask more out of them, they'll give you more, right? And you don't always, you're not always pushing,
Right.
So.
You're not used to my serious face. You were being serious, so I was giving you my
No,
serious
sometimes I
face.
say words wrong, and you just look at me and like.
This is like going back to ethanol versus urethane, okay?
I was a little drunk that day, I think. Alright, so I've talked to Jim about this. We've both kind of in the last little bit have gotten more into our religious side, right? We were born, or not born, we were raised as Catholics, right?
Yeah, growed up would not be a correct
Yeah,
word.
sorry.
There it is.
Yeah. So our parents, took us to church, or sent us to church most of the time, but right, and I don't remember a lot of it as a young man growing up in the church. I went to CCD, they called it back then as catechism class, whatever, Bibles. We had Bible study, we had just people telling us what we had to memorize, but as adults now, and I've always believed in God, I've always had that, the prayer, but I never dove into it as much anymore. And I think that in the Bible, from what I've been reading lately more and talking about it, that it defines a man a little bit on there, and I think one of the pastors that I've been watching on his podcast, and I'll give him a shout out, Joby Martin, he's made a 5 definition thing of what the Bible says a man should be, and it's kind of things we've been talking about tonight too. It's a provider, where you cultivate and flourish though as a provider, like you're not just bringing money to the table, right? You're providing your family with a lifestyle and things, but
Stability.
you're also bringing them up. You're a protector. Make sure you don't hurt them, right? Or they don't get hurt or
Teach
whatever.
them how to defend themselves. The same thing as helping to protect them.
You're a prophet, so you want to make sure you're always telling the truth. You're teaching them in the way. Well, that kind of goes to the next part where it says a priest, right? Priest takes care of his people. He gives them the social guidance that they need, right? And then you're a servant king. So those are his 5 definitions, and you actually touched on servant king just a minute ago, right?
Yeah.
So you're there to, again, help your people flourish without domination. Is there any, do you guys, how were you raised? Was the church a big part of you? Did that make any difference on how you were raised?
For me, I was, my parents didn't push the church on me. I had some friends in elementary school, and the one kid, his dad was a preacher. I went to that church for a while, just on my own, ride my bike to, I grew up down in the Amish country, and it was church way back in the woods, and that's where I went. And my aunt and uncle, they started getting me more involved, and I went to church with them and got involved more. I was raised Baptist, and I still have my faith. I still have my beliefs. I don't attend church, but I like I said, I have my beliefs. I have I'm still strong in the faith. I just don't attend church, and so.
Does that help you lead in your parenting then?
No, see, my wife she was raised Catholic as well, and my children were raised in the Catholic Church as well. She took them to church, did the PSR, all that other stuff, and then did, but I mean, as far as my beliefs and putting it with the kids, I did not push that, my religion, my faith.
I think my question's more, did your morals come from your upbringing in the church, or did you acquire them somewhere else?
No, I believe that, that my morals they came from the church. Absolutely.
I think Chris pretty much covered both of our experiences.
I mean, we were always taught right from wrong, don't steal, don't, do all these things as kids from our dad, right? And the faith part, again, as a young man, I don't remember a lot about it. Jim, we both felt like as kids in the Catholic Church, we were just supposed to memorize things, that nobody really explained it to us.
Yeah.
But my parents were both raised Catholic too, though. So we had the 10 Commandments in front of us. We knew what they were, which is don't steal, don't take God's name in vain, and all the other ones, right? So we kind of lived with those, but I think a lot of our morals came from just watching our dad and how he, what he told us was right from wrong and things like that. But now that I'm reading a little bit more into and studying more, I should say, I think it's a little different. And I wish I would have had more of that in my life as a younger man, and I think it would have maybe changed things as, maybe the way I did things, and been a different father maybe a little bit. I still think the moral part of it is the biggest part, and that's what I try to teach my children, and my children are great. They're all what I would call good people, good citizens.
Oh yeah.
Not getting arrested, not going to jail, things like that. And I mean, that was one of the big things we were taught as kids. Like, this is something you didn't want to do. You didn't want to mess with a police officer or get in that system. But it's just
about you, Jason.
So I've got a little bit different. So I was raised hyper religious. So I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness until basically college. And me going to college was a major issue because college was not something that was looked upon fondly by the organization. So it was, three church meetings a week and door-to-door ministry, and I remember being 17 years old and standing up in front of a crowd of 45,000 people delivering a 45-minute sermon. I was full bore into it. And then as I got a little bit older, and not that college taught me anything different, it was just as I got older and started to apply more critical thinking skills, it was like, a lot of what I'm seeing here isn't. So what that wound up doing to me is it jaded me a bit on organized religion. I believe in a strong moral code. I don't know if I believe in a creator or not, but I believe that there's some kind of a structured plan for why the world is where it is, or how it existed. But I've seen, unfortunately, the dark side of organized religion with what people and personalities can do with it, so it kind of soured me on it a bit. So from a parental perspective, it led me to try and drive that moral code into my kids without the, if you don't do this, you're going to go to hell aspect. Because, first of all, growing up a Jehovah's Witness, I don't believe in hell. So that wasn't even a thing. But it was, because, my ex-wife, she always felt a strong connection with churches wherever we lived. So I participated, I made sure the kids went, I helped out, but I was never fully into it. But the basic moral code applies as a man. It's, protecting your family, watching out for your family, watching out for your community, ensuring that what you say has meaning to it. what you do matches what you say. That, you know, and you go back, you mentioned the 10 Commandments, you know, don't murder, don't kill, don't steal, don't covet, don't take your neighbor's wife, don't do all those things. That's just good living.
Right. Absolutely.
And it's kind of what the laws of our country are built on too, right?
Right.
Like some basics there as well.
Well, you look at every religion in the world, whether it's Judaism, Hinduism, Islam, there's central tenets of each that ring true across. Then there's weird things that branch off left and right, let's be honest.
Yeah.
But that central moral code is basically a tenet of every major world religion. Then it just becomes, what hat do you wear? That's George Carlin.
Do you think there's a change in the moral code over the years, or
Oh,
still
100%.
pretty-
100%. I mean, as we got into, I'd say, the late 90s, early 2000s and beyond, it's been a much more permissive, everything goes kind of culture. I've always been a firm believer in never yuck somebody else's yum, right? I'm not going to sit and judge what somebody else likes to do. But as a society, there's lines, right? And when things start to cross those lines, then standards and meaning kind of go out the window. And when standards and meaning go out the window, you're left to the base nature of humanity. And, you know, if the power went out tomorrow and didn't come back on for a month, you'd watch society completely crumble. Because the base nature of humanity is me, 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 me. And when everything transitions down to everything I do is right because I say it's right, then that starts to intrude upon everybody else. I don't care what somebody does in their own bedroom. I don't care what somebody wants to believe. I don't care who they pray to. They can pray to the flying spaghetti monster for all I care. But when you do starts to infringe upon what I do, right? You start to think that stealing is okay. You start to think that public disrespect is okay. You start to think that physically assaulting people is okay. That crosses a line. And that's where society, unfortunately, has started to get to, right? I mean, we think nowadays, because the news is on 24/7, we think we live in a more dangerous society than we used to. In actuality, the raw numbers, crime is down. But things beyond crime are way up, right? We didn't see homeless people in the streets left and right when we were kids, right? We didn't see people openly disrespecting their elders like we see today. You can't measure that as a crime number, but it measures the slow breakdown of society.
So is that our line, or is that? I mean, are they just? Is it the line just moving?
The line is moving.
Right.
And as a society, if you allow the line to move, the line no longer matters.
Well, as a society, you have to have an anchor point for that line, though. Otherwise, it's just an arbitrary line.
Exactly. And no matter where you set the line, you're going to annoy some people, you're going to quote-unquote disenfranchise some people, you're going to piss some people off. But as a society, you have to have a line. Otherwise, you don't have a society. You have anarchy.
Very true.
It's kind of common goals, common line, right?
And with that,
But if a line moves, it becomes a curve.
right.
correct. Somebody else?
Sure.
All right, let's rate this thing. Jim, since you were the wonderful provider of this glorious nectar.
This is going to be one of my favorites that we've tried so far in the show.
I can definitely see that.
I told Brother Chris earlier today, this is not your father's wild turkey. And wild turkey isn't bad. I actually like Wild Turkey 101 and a couple of their celebrity brands, but
All right.
this is a solid 3.6 for me. This is super fragrant, a ton of different flavor profiles, and they hit it out of the park with this.
Me?
Yep, you.
I am. I'm right there too. Again, I'm as a young kid. You know, when you're at the parties and somebody shows up and that's what they got, old granddad wild turkey, and you drink that traditional wild turkey. Yeah, not your dad's wild turkey, not your granddad's wild turkey. But this, I'm right there too. I mean, I was, again, very surprised at the rye, and I was a little bit higher, I think, on the rye. This is right there about a 3.5 for me, 3.4 to 3.5, but delicious. I'm loving it.
That rye is probably one of the best ryes I've tasted in a long, long time, and I love rye whiskey. This is a different level. I will be finding one of these bottles, and I will be getting it, and I'm not going to pay anything stupid, but I'm going to find one, and I'm going to get it, because this is out of this world. I could go out on the patio tonight and fire up another cigar and sit here and sip this thing all night long. Unfortunately, it's Sunday, and tomorrow is Monday, and that would be a bad idea. But this is great. I would give this a solid 3.7.
That's a record.
Yeah. Yeah, and apparently I have a drinking problem. Yeah, I know. Yeah, don't be alarmed when I leak the chair.
I really like this a lot too.
It's leather. Glad you got that one.
I think it tastes a lot like the rye to me. It still has a lot of that good flavor in it both ways. I'm gonna rate it the same. I'm gonna rate it at a 3.3. You know, I definitely would drink this. You know, could sit all night and bullshit with you guys and have this, and yeah, but I'm gonna keep it at a 3.3 for me.
Awesome. But I think this might be, if it's not our highest rated bourbon.
Oh, most definitely. Well, I got to say thank you to both you two guys, because these were two absolutely phenomenal pours tonight.
Just coincidental that you ended up with the rye, and
You got
I had just acquired the.
Yep, very, very, very lucky.
But folks, we thank you guys for joining us again. You know, I don't know that it was a controversial topic, but it was something that we had on our minds after last week, talking about, you know, some of the things. It's kind of, you know, this is the stuff that we hope you guys understand, that this is our group. And these are things we kind of talk about. Like Jason said, we call each other and reach out to each other. Find that group for you guys, right? Find those people who think the same. I don't have to be exactly the same, but that you can, you know, relate to, that you can pour your heart into, and they can give you some good advice, or they might have been through it, talk about different things. And, you know, I mean, we touched a little bit on Bible end of it, but that, you know, you can find that in church groups, but you can find that in a bourbon group, right? Jim's also part of a bourbon barrel and butts.
Bibles, bourbon, and butts.
Bible, bourbon,
so
and
I actually
butts.
do a Bible study. I generally smoke a meat. We sample some bourbons, and we'll smoke a cigar. And it's a bunch of guys getting together, having fellowship, and really connecting.
Yeah. And we don't talk very much. Jim and I will talk a little bit now more, but we don't hardly ever talk about religion. So bringing that up tonight was kind of just a curveball, probably for most of us. But yeah, just find your group, guys. Find those people that can help move you through and lift you up. All right. So thanks for joining us again. Remember to like and share our stuff if you like us with those around you. And guys, it's meant to be shared, not sitting on the shelf collecting dust. Thank you.
Bourbon brothers on our way up, sharing every sip, sharing every cup. Everybody